Mom, Christmas is coming. Why don't you come back? Everyone's waiting for you. Michael's voice came through the phone, deliberately warm, almost like he'd practiced it. It had that forced cheer the kind salesmen use when they're trying too hard. That was my son speaking, my own blood, but the voice didn't sound like his. It felt distant, like I was talking to a stranger. I was sitting by myself in my apartment in Los Angeles, pale winter sunlight sliding through the tall windows like a faded memory. My fingers tightened around the phone. It had been 26 years. 26 long years of silence. And now, out of nowhere, this was the first time he'd called. Not once for my birthday. Not even for Mother's Day. Just this sudden call, inviting me home like nothing had happened. What a joke. I can't, I said, my voice flat and steady, doing everything I could not to let any emotion show. He either didn't hear the coldness in my voice or chose to ignore it. Come on, Mom. Don't be like that. Dad said if you're open to coming back, we can move past everything. And spending Christmas by yourself? That's just sad. I gave a short laugh, bitter, sharp. Oh, how generous of him. Why don't you go ask your dad who pushed me out to begin with? Who was sneaking around with another woman? Who yanked you out of my arms like I was nobody? Silence followed, just long enough to make things uncomfortable. Then, awkwardly, Michael spoke. Mom, can't we just let that go? What matters is we're still family. And, I heard your old apartment got caught up in that downtown redevelopment thing. Did you get any payout from it? There it was. The real reason. So much for family. My tone went icy. Yes, I did. Why do you care? You've been watching me? He rushed in, sounding hurt. No, Mom, it's not like that. It's just my fiancé and I were getting married and the housing market is just insane. We can't even save for a down payment. If you could help even just a little, it would mean the world. My hands went cold. Still, I kept my voice calm. Michael, how many times have you reached out in the last 26 years? Ever come by to see if I'm still alive? And now, suddenly, you remember you have a mother because I've got some money in the bank. He sighed, sounding annoyed. Mom, don't be like that. I'm trying, okay? You help with the down payment, and I swear I'll visit all the time. I took a deep breath, held back the fury rising inside. Let me make this clear, Michael. Not a cent of that money is going to you. I earned it. I survived those 26 years alone. That money is mine. You don't just show up now and lay claim to it because you dialed my number. I'm your son, he shot back, his voice louder. How could you do this to me? My laugh was empty. Where were you when I needed a son? When I was completely alone? You don't get to use that word now. You want my money? Keep dreaming. You and your father won't see a dime. Then I hung up. I sat frozen on the couch like the wind had been knocked out of me. Then came the tears. Hot, silent, fast. But they weren't from sadness. They came from rage. Rage that they still dared to act like family meant something. Rage that, deep down, I had hoped maybe, just maybe, this call was real. Then the phone rang again. My palms, which had dried, began sweating again. Caller ID Richard Carter. I stared at the name for a few seconds, then picked up. If you've got something to say it, I said, trying to keep steady. Even after all this time, just hearing his voice stirred something in me. Helen, come on, don't be like this, he said with that same fake softness in his voice. Sure, we've been divorced for years, but we still share a son, right? He's getting married soon. Maybe you could help him out, pitch in for a house or something. I let out a cold, humorless laugh. Richard, you've got some nerve. Who threw me out all those years ago? Who held our son and slammed the door in my face? And now that I've got some money, I'm suddenly your ex-wife again. His tone shifted, more direct, losing the nice act. Helen, that was a long time ago. Why keep holding on to it? And let's be real, you're not getting younger. Do you even need all that money? I cut him off. You haven't changed. Still as shameless as ever. Listen carefully. I'll only say it once. You're not getting a cent, don't even think about it. I didn't wait. I hung up. The phone landed on the sofa with a dull thud. I leaned back and let out a long, heavy breath. Outside, the sunset was glowing, but inside me it felt like storms. My mind wandered back 26 years. That night. It had been a freezing winter evening, rain pouring like buckets. I was kneeling on the front steps of our old home, soaked to the bone. Richard stood in the doorway holding Michael. Michael, who could barely speak then. Richard's face was blank, icy. "You're useless," he said flatly, like reading lines. "You can't even care for a child. You're out. Don't come back. You won't see him again." My face was drenched in tears. My voice shook. "You can't do this. You're the one who cheated. Why are you throwing me out? Why are you taking my child?" He scoffed. "I cheated? Look at you. Always a mess. Always nagging. Who could live with that? You did this to yourself." Then he slammed the door. Left me there in the cold rain like an abandoned dog. After that, I tried once to pick Michael up from school, but his father's family stopped me. "You're not family anymore," his mother barked. "You have no right to see him." Still, I didn't give up. I dragged myself to courtrooms one after the other, trying to get custody back. But hope doesn't get you far when you have no money, no education, and no support. He had lawyers, influence, family. Me? I was just a broke housewife someone pitied and deemed unfit. I lost. Completely. After that, I became a stranger to my own son. I moved to Los Angeles starting from scratch. I washed dishes, delivered food, scrubbed floors in homes where people didn't even acknowledge me. I did everything just to survive. No one asked how I made it. No one cared. But I made it because I had no other choice. That memory lived inside me like a tumor. And every time someone said, "Mom," it ached. I picked up the phone and called Marilyn, my closest friend. The one who saved me when I had nothing but broken pride in an empty apartment. "You were right, Marilyn," I told her. "I can't let them worm their way back in. They're not getting a penny." "Damn right they're not," she snapped, like slamming her hand on a table. "Helen, you've suffered more than they'll ever know. And now they think they can just show up with fake smiles and take what's yours? No way." I nodded, though she couldn't see it. "I've learned one thing, blood doesn't mean love. And this time I'm living for me." After we hung up, I stood at the window, watching as city lights began to blink on. Los Angeles, once cold and unfamiliar, now felt like the only real home I had. I made a promise to myself right then. No more begging, no more mourning the past. From this moment on, I would become someone entirely new. I stood at that window, holding a cup of cold tea, staring over the balcony at the city. Los Angeles sunsets were always stunning, gold fading into pink. But in my chest there was no glow. No one really knows what it took for me to walk that road for 26 years. After the divorce, those early years were the lowest of my life. I had nothing. No husband, no child, not even a bed to call my own. It felt like I'd been ripped out of my own life and tossed into a world that didn't want me. No degree, no job history. The only thing I had was desperation. So I begged. I worked. I took whatever jobs I could. Eventually, I started washing dishes at a tiny restaurant. 10 hours a day in a greasy kitchen, hands soaked in cold, dirty water. I kept scrubbing even when I heard people whisper, "That's the one whose husband dumped her. She couldn't even keep her kid. What kind of mother is that?" I heard it all. Pretended I didn't. Just kept scrubbing. That's when I learned something vital. The world doesn't stop when a woman falls. It doesn't wait or help. And just when you think you've hit bottom, life can drop you lower. One night after closing, I was walking through the alley behind the restaurant. It was pitch dark, quieter than usual. Then out of nowhere, some drunk men appeared, shouting nasty things. One grabbed my shirt. I fought, shoved, clawed, but I was no match. I hit the pavement, pain shooting through me. I thought, maybe this is where it ends. Then came a voice. Get your hands off her. It thundered through the alley. It was Marilyn. She lived a few doors down in the same rundown building. A few years older, loud-mouthed and bold as hell. She came charging with a broom in her hands and fury in her voice. Her shouting cut through the night louder than their fists. They ran. From that night on, everything changed. Marilyn became my person. She brought me dinner, sat with me when I couldn't speak. But most importantly, she never pitied me. Not once. She never said, "You poor thing." She said, "You don't get to give up. Stand up, Helen." She looked me in the eyes and said, "Don't let them win. Do you hear me? Live better than they ever imagined." Those words stuck with me deep in my chest. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I just told myself to survive and then grow stronger. So I kept scrubbing dishes by day and took night classes at the community college. I studied computers and accounting. Time was short and money even tighter, but quitting wasn't even on the table anymore. After 3 years, I got hired as an assistant at a small trading firm. The pay was modest, but it meant I was finally free from dirty dish pits and mop water. I thought for a moment that life might finally be turning around. But I was wrong. One afternoon, outside a grocery store, I saw someone who made my heart jump. Michael. He was older, probably 10 or 11, his backpack hanging off one shoulder. He was taller than I remembered. My heart nearly exploded as I ran over, calling out, "Phil, do you remember me?" He froze and stepped back, confusion in his eyes. "Who are you?" he asked, brows scrunched. "My mom died years ago. Stop pretending." I stood frozen like lightning had struck me. "Michael, sweetheart, it's me," I said softly. "Don't you remember? You used to ask for milk pancakes every Sunday." But his face twisted with irritation and he began to turn away. That's when I spotted Richard, walking over with some perfectly dressed woman. The moment he saw me, his expression changed. He grabbed Michael and said, "Don't talk to her. Let's go." I didn't move. I didn't yell. I just stood there as silent tears slid down my cheeks. My own son looked right at me and didn't know who I was. Not because I looked different, but because Richard had erased me from his life. He told him I was dead. That's what true erasure looks like. After that, I broke down. I shut myself inside my tiny apartment, barely bigger than a closet, and didn't come out for 3 days. I didn't eat, didn't drink, didn't even touch the curtains. I just lay in the darkness, sobbing like the pain would never end. I had held on for so long, hoping Michael would know me again. But he looked me in the eye and called me a stranger. Told me I was dead. I remember curling into a corner, those words replaying over and over in my mind. My mom died years ago. That night I thought about ending it. Not from desperation but from sheer measured exhaustion. I sat on the bathroom floor, a bottle of sleeping pills in my hand, cap off. I thought, if no one remembers me, maybe it wouldn't matter if I disappeared. Then Marilyn stormed in like she owned the place. She kicked open the door, took one look at me and slapped me. Not hard, just enough to snap me back. "What the hell are you doing?" she shouted, angrier than I'd ever seen. "You want to die and hand it all to those two bastards? That's what you're doing. Die and they win. Easy. Clean. Free. Is that really what you want?" Every word hit me like a knife, but I didn't cry. It's like she cursed the tears right out of me. "Think about everything you've been through these past 20 years, she said. "And now you want to quit? You're really going to let them win?" I don't remember what I said, just that I clung to her and cried like a kid. She held me, rubbing my back, whispering, "From now on, you live for you. No one else." That night I began again. I pulled every frayed piece of myself together. I stuffed the pain down and threw myself into work. Even simple tasks, I made sure they were perfect. I volunteered to double-check spreadsheets, taught myself Excel, signed up for global trade classes at night. And in 3 years, I rose from nameless assistant to department manager. My pay tripled. I got a better apartment. For the first time, I walked into a tailor's and bought a suit, clean makeup, sharp eyes. I barely recognized the woman in the mirror. But I wasn't finished. I enrolled in UC's night program, studying international trade. I worked by day, studied at night, went to weekend lectures. I was surrounded by students half my age, scribbling notes like my life depended on it. Sometimes 1 cup of coffee had to last me 2 days, just to get one more chapter in. And it paid off. 10 years later, I stood in my own office holding the business license for HC Global Trade Incorporated. At 45, I had built a trading company from scratch. From dishwater to million-dollar deals in 20 years. First thing I did? Cleared all my debts. Then I bought a house, just mine. No man's name on the papers. Helen Carter. For the first time, I felt true dignity. Then, just before Christmas, a letter came. The government was compensating me for a rundown house I'd bought decades ago in East Ella, the one with the broken heater and peeling walls. I'd nearly forgotten it, but the city hadn't. $500,000. I laughed out loud when I saw it. After everything, fate remembered me. I planned to use it to grow my business and maybe buy myself a little house by the sea for retirement. But before I could finish those plans, the past came knocking again. Michael called first, talking about family and the holidays. 2 days later, Richard called, playing the "We Share a Child" card, asking for help, like old times. I listened to their sweet, practiced voices and let out a bitter laugh. The kind that comes when you've survived enough to see through every lie. I texted Marilyn right after. You were right. Not one of them deserves forgiveness. They thought I was still soft, that I could be guilt manipulated. But the Helen they remembered died a long time ago. And my revenge? It was just beginning. Richard shuffled in, hunched and lifeless, his eyes empty like a shell of the man he had once been. The judge's voice rang out cold and precise as the charges were read. Richard Carter, you're under investigation for bribery and evidence tampering tied to a custody decision made 26 years ago. Do you deny these accusations? Richard trembled, lips colorless, his wide eyes betraying fear. I confess, he whispered. Please show mercy. I didn't have a choice. I watched him, not with pity but with unflinching clarity. When my moment came, I stepped to the stand. I fixed my gaze on him, staring right through the man who 26 years ago had cast me out of my own house. My voice was steady, sharp. He stole my child. He destroyed my life with lies and money. I let the silence settle. I want him to know justice remembers. Richard dropped to his knees, crying. Helen, I was wrong. Please, forgive me. I looked down at him, a cold smile tugging at my lips. Forgive you. I lifted my chin slightly. That's not even an option anymore. You better get used to the taste of destruction. I lived with it for decades. The court overturned the old verdict, clearing my name. Richard was sentenced 3 years behind bars, 5 years probation, and ordered to pay $200,000 in damages for emotional suffering. When I stepped outside, the sun in Los Angeles was warm and golden. I breathed in deep and finally felt the weight of 26 years vanish. I had won, and I used the same weapons they once used to crush me, power and money. But the story wasn't finished yet. One part still remained. One person I still needed to face. Michael, my son. The boy I once lived and worked for, the one I endured humiliation and heartbreak for. But he wasn't that boy anymore. He'd become something worse than Richard. I hired a private investigator. Not the typical kind, but a former FBI analyst who specialized in corporate fraud and deep deception. It didn't take long. Soon I had a thick file on my desk. Michael had been leeching off women. For different cities for women. Each had sent him tens of thousands. The same story every time. A failed venture, a sick mother, a looming foreclosure. He was a con artist skilled at feeding on trust. Even worse, he was living multiple lives. 2 women thought they were engaged to him. One had already shared photos from her bridal fitting. I turned each page in my office, the words cutting deeper each time. But I didn't cry. I made copies, slipped them into anonymous envelopes, one for each woman, each with a note in my handwriting. You deserve a cleaner future. I also submitted an anonymous complaint to the California Bureau of Financial Fraud, including all the evidence. Less than a week passed. The case was accepted. Then the phone rang. It was a Friday. I just finished a meeting. Michael. I answered calmly. Heard things have been rough. His voice came through soft, unsure, almost hopeful. Mom, you picked up. Thank God. Yeah. Things are bad. Could you maybe help me? Just a little? I'm really struggling. I leaned back, smiled without warmth. What did you think I was all those years, Michael? I reminded him. I'd reached out so many times. And every single time he slammed the door. I meant nothing to him. Now, needing money, I was suddenly his mother again? Panic crept into his tone. Please, Mom. I know I messed up. I swear I'll fix it. Just give me one more chance. I ran my hand along the edge of the phone, took a breath. Too late, I said. You threw me away. Now live with that. I ended the call without a second thought. And for the first time I felt nothing. No pain, no guilt. Just stillness. Michael was eventually charged with multiple fraud counts. His face and name flooded local headlines. His career crumbled. Whatever image he crafted shattered. In the end, he paid his price. Meanwhile, my life had soared. My company expanded to New York and Chicago. We signed 7-figure deals, becoming a leader in our industry. For the first time ever, I could choose who I worked with. I could say no. But my true healing didn't come from money or awards. It came from watching other women rise because I reached back for them. That's why I created the Phoenix Rising Foundation. The mission was simple: to ensure no woman endured what I had. No one should be kicked out of their home, cast aside by their child, or dismissed as worthless. I wanted to give them choices, power. We offered safe housing, legal support, trauma care, and job training. For many, it was the first time they saw they had a choice. 5 winters later, I sat on my Santa Barbara balcony, wrapped in a cream shawl, sipping warm mulled wine. Snow dusted the mountains, a rare California snow glowing under sunset. My cat dozed nearby. A letter sat beside me, just delivered. It was from the Los Angeles Social Contribution Council. I had been named Philanthropist of the Year. At the ceremony, under the stage lights, I looked out. Over 100 women sat in the audience, once forgotten, silenced, cast away. My eyes welled with tears. My success had never been about just escaping my own darkness. It was about helping others out of theirs. It was about proving a truth I'd finally learned. You can choose not to forgive, and you can still choose to start again. That afternoon, sunlight spilled into my office. I was reviewing plans for a new shelter project when my housekeeper approached quietly. Miss Carter, you have a call. I looked at the screen. A name I had deleted so many times I lost count. But it still made my breath catch. Michael. I paused, then answered. Mom. His voice cracked, timid, delicate, like it had traveled a long way. Hi, sweetheart. I replied gently. Mama, I know I don't deserve this. I've thought about everything all those years behind bars. I regret it all. Every lie. Every time I hurt you. I've got a small job now. Sales. It's not much, but I'm trying. Could we meet? Just once. I closed my eyes, breathed in. I didn't know what to say. Or even what I felt. I didn't reply. I just hung up, sitting quietly. That night sleep wouldn't come. Even with thick curtains drawn, his voice echoed in my mind. Mom, it's me. It sounded older. Weighed down. Guilt-laced. And for the first time in years, I lay awake until sunrise. When the light hit my sheets, I stirred. I didn't call him. Instead, I wrote a letter, each word slow, careful, like my heart still needed its armor. It read, "Michael, if you want a chance, sit down and tell me the truth. Not for yourself. Not for me. But because someone somewhere has to show you what taking responsibility really means. I'll be at the Mildred Street Cafe near my house. Friday exactly at 2 p.m. I remembered Helen's warning. Don't be late. That day, I wore something bright on purpose. An orange wool coat Marilyn had given me the year before. Stop hiding behind the past, she'd said. No more gray. The Mildred Street Cafe wasn't anything special. Worn tables, creaky chairs, but it was quiet, clean. That's why I liked it. I got there half an hour early, ordered a black coffee, no sugar, and placed it across from me for him. Right at 2 o'clock, he walked in. I knew it was him, but I needed a moment. His hair was shorter now, his body leaner, harder. His jacket looked tired, like it had been through too many washes. His hands were red and scraped up, maybe from heavy lifting. He stood still in front of me, not sitting yet. He looked small in that moment, like the boy who once lied about breaking a vase when he was 10. I nodded at the coffee. He murmured a thank you, then sat slowly. Silence hung between us for a while, thick and still. I could hear my heartbeat, steady and slow. He spoke first, soft and raspy. Mom, I've changed. He told me prison gave him time to think, to write letters he never sent. I didn't answer, just listened. He said he had a job now, entry-level sales, but he was trying, really trying. He said he hadn't lied or taken anything that wasn't his. I still didn't say anything, just tapped the rim of my cup in even beats. He admitted how much damage he caused, how he lied to everyone, especially me. I want to be someone you can be proud of, he said. I finally looked up. His eyes were damp, blinking too fast. I spoke low. The woman you see here took 26 years to become. You don't erase that with a few kind words and coffee. He bit his lip, didn't argue. I softened my voice. I didn't come here to forgive you. I came to ask if you're ready to face everything you've done. He nodded, eyes reddening. I reached into my bag and slid a hardcover notebook across the table. If you're serious, I said, send me something each week. A memory, a reflection, truth only. No stories, no spin. His hand shook as he took it. When he looked up, something flickered in his eyes. I didn't promise him anything. But right then I felt something shift. Not a return, but maybe a beginning. As I stood to leave, he stood too. Just before I turned, he whispered, "Thank you." I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I knew he'd come again, not to seek forgiveness, but to start becoming someone a mother could believe in. And he didn't miss the next meeting. 1 week later, just before sunset, he stood on my porch right on time, notebook in hand. He looked more put together, hair trimmed, shirt ironed. He stood there, uncertain but determined. I didn't invite him in. I took the notebook, nodded. If you want to keep writing, we can find another time. He said, I do, and left. I stood on the porch watching him walk away. No relief, just a strange heaviness I couldn't name. Not anger, something more cautious. A kind of wariness that comes when something shattered starts to rebuild. That night I read what he wrote. He described the moment he was told I had died. How Richard, beer in hand, said it like it was just another news update. Michael hadn't cried. Just accepted it. He wrote about a woman showing up at his school with a stuffed bunny when he was in 3rd grade. He panicked, ran home. Richard punished him, told him she was dangerous and never to speak to her again. From then on, Michael said a strange ache took root, fear, confusion, and a deep, quiet loss he couldn't name. He didn't justify any of it. Just wrote honestly, awkwardly about growing up in lies. How love for a mother he barely remembered turned into something else. When I finished reading, I couldn't name what I felt. It wasn't sadness, not quite. More like understanding. For the first time, I could clearly see the slow steps that had led him away from me. I set the notebook on the dining table and left the light on. I didn't sleep well that night, but better than I had in a long time. Our second meeting was on a quiet Saturday afternoon. He asked to meet near the downtown library on a bench. I brought lemon water. He carried a book on sales strategies. "Mom," he said, "I'm not asking you to trust me right away. I just want to be someone you might believe in someday." I nodded, said we needed rules, no money, no co-signing, no moving in. "Not punishment," I explained, "just protection. Space." He nodded. "I get it." I added, "I'll read what you write, but I won't always respond." He smiled. "That's more than I've had in 20 years. We talked for 2 hours. About his job, the tough clients, his strict boss. He shared his new routines. Forcing himself out of bed. Journaling 10 minutes each morning. Every night listing 3 things he didn't mess up, even if they were small. "Sounds like you're finally talking to yourself," I said. He smiled. "Yeah, I think I'm finally hearing my own voice." That warmed something in me. Not joy, but a fragile trust. The kind that grows slow like frost melting on a winter window. I didn't say it, but walking home, I was already looking forward to next week. It was the one time I managed to sneak in and care for him while Richard wasn't home. The last time I was allowed to be near him. We sat quietly on the couch sipping our tea. The sky had already darkened outside. Streetlights poured through the windows, casting long slants of light across the coffee table. For the first time in what felt like ages, the house, this quiet little space, felt like home again. When he stood up to leave, I walked him to the door. He turned back to me, hesitating like he had more on his mind. "I've been trying to find something to do," he said. "Not a job, something meaningful. Something to help people. I don't know if I'll be any good, but I want to try." I didn't respond right away. Then I said, "If you're serious, look into Phoenix. It's not perfect, but it matters." He didn't bring it up after that, and I didn't ask again until Friday. I was checking a standard email update from one of the foundation's coordinators. Just names of new volunteers and changes to programs. I scrolled lazily, then stopped. Michael Carter. Completed volunteer training. Now helping with intake and orientation. I just stared at the screen and smiled. He hadn't told me, which was exactly what I'd hoped for. He had taken the first step himself. Not because I let him, but because he wanted to walk that path on his own. That Saturday, I went early to the foundation office. Pretending I was just passing through, I peeked into the training room. Michael was there, guiding 3 new female volunteers through the intake process. His gestures were a bit unsure, but his voice was calm and focused. He paused to make sure they followed. When he noticed me, surprise flickered across his face, but no fear, just a small nod. Then he kept going. I sat in the back just listening. After he wrapped up and saw them off with warm goodbyes, he came over and sat next to me. "You knew I'd be here?" he asked. "Not before today," I said, smiling. "But the fact that you didn't tell me says everything. You wanted to do this on your own." He dropped his head and smiled. In that moment, I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. Confidence that he'd earned, not borrowed. "I just didn't want you to worry about me anymore," he said. I nodded. In the weeks that followed, the change became more visible. When he came for dinner, he brought recipes to try. He stopped waiting to be served, he helped. He did the dishes, wiped down the counters. He talked about the future. Not in vague dreams, but actual plans. "I'm thinking of taking a management course," he said one night. "Might help if the foundation expands." Later, he volunteered for a job placement program for survivors of domestic violence. He handled files, made calls. Then one day the program director pulled me aside. She said Michael had sat for 2 hours just listening to a woman tell her story. She cried afterward. "I never thought a man would actually sit through all of it," she told the director. "Michael never told me about it." That night he came over, put his notebook on the table and said, "I didn't write a story this week. Just 3 names and 3 things they told me." I opened the notebook. The first page read, "You are stronger than you think." We didn't eat dinner. Just drank tea. At one point he looked up and asked, "Mom, how did you get through it all at the start?" I stayed quiet a moment, then said, "I didn't. I stumbled all the way through." He nodded slowly. "I get that." And I could tell he truly meant it. It wasn't pity. It was understanding. He was beginning to see that living isn't about avoiding pain. It's about learning to carry it. That night when he got up to leave, I walked him to the door. He paused, then leaned in and hugged me. Not like a boy needing comfort, but like a grown man letting his guard down, choosing closeness. I hugged him back, patted his shoulder. "Don't be late for work tomorrow," I teased. He laughed. "I won't let you down." When the door shut behind him, I stood still for a moment, looking down the hallway. And in that stillness I felt something shift. Life was getting better. That afternoon the sunlight was soft and golden. Michael came by for lunch as usual, but this time he brought a plan. "I reached out to a care home in Berkeley," he said, setting down his jacket. "They're doing a Mother's Day volunteer event. I think someone you used to know is there. You mentioned her once." I blinked, caught off guard. "Rita?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, you said she was the only one you could talk to when things were rough." A gentle stir moved inside me. Distant but familiar. Rita had been my neighbor during those long years in low-income housing. Fierce, blunt, loyal. Always smelled of chili. She had moved away after falling ill, and we lost touch. That day, Michael and I drove 2 hours to the care home. We found her in the garden, sunning herself near the courtyard wall. Her face was pale, but her grin lit up when she saw me. She grabbed my hand with the same old strength. "You must be the boy," she said to Michael, squinting. "The one who wouldn't open the door while your mother cried in the courtyard. I wanted to knock your father's teeth out." Michael gave a shy laugh but didn't flinch. "I know I missed a lot," he said quietly. Rita raised an eyebrow. "So you think you can make it up?" He looked her right in the eye and said, "I want to try." I looked at them. One had been my lifeline, the other my deepest wound. Now they were seated beside me. We spent the afternoon talking, laughing, mostly listening to Rita's unstoppable commentary. Driving home, the sun dipped behind the hills. We barely spoke. The silence wasn't awkward, just full. As we pulled into the driveway, he broke it. "Mom," he said, "was there ever a time you really wanted to erase me from your life?" I didn't answer right away. "Yes," I said softly. He turned toward me, calm. "When you were 17, I said. "The last time I stood outside your window. You saw me, then closed the curtain." I looked toward the fading orange sky. I went home and lay on my bed, thinking maybe it's time to let go. Maybe I should erase you from my heart. "Why didn't you?" he asked. "Because I couldn't," I whispered. The car stayed still. Neither of us moved. "You know," I continued, "before you closed the curtain you hesitated. Just for a second. I never forgot that." He lowered his head. "In that second," he said, "I was wondering if you'd leave." I looked at him. "I never left. I just waited until you turned back." That night we didn't have dinner. We didn't say goodbye. He just reached over and held my hand. Quiet, simple. Then he drove away. I stood in the doorway watching the glow of his taillights disappear. And for the first time I felt the full weight of those years, grief, anger, waiting, ease gently without drama. A few weeks later, Michael invited me to the Phoenix Foundation's annual gala. He stood among the volunteers in a charcoal gray suit. No nervous smiles, no overcompensating. Just calm, steady presence. And for the first time I didn't see a boy trying to be good. I saw a man growing whole. He didn't speak much. But when he said, Rebuilding closeness is the longest, hardest journey, but it's worth it. I noticed a woman in the crowd nod and tears filled my eyes. Afterward, we walked home together. He carried his jacket over one arm. I was nervous, he said, but I didn't feel like I was just speaking for myself. I know, I said. You were speaking for a lot of mothers. And a lot of sons. The wind picked up. He offered me the jacket. I smiled and shook my head. You keep it. I'm not cold. He nodded. We kept walking. Moonlight striped the sidewalk. We walked side by side like two people who finally understood each other's inner map. The pain, the silence, the space between us. It was all still there. But it didn't define us anymore. Michael wasn't my shame or my regret. He was just my son. And I could finally say with peace and pride, I am his mother. A reunion long overdue, but one we both arrived at fully present.